Goblin launch detected.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. I'm also sponsored by Face to Face Games, Canada's premier Magic the Gathering store. Using the promo code MTGMudsta will get you 5% off site-wide, with eligible orders getting free shipping Canada-wide. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's got a sweet game coming your way, with Kevin playing his Sophina and Wernog deck. His opening hand has Winds of Abandon, Temple of Triumph, Plains, Academy Manufactor, Armix, Horde Hauler, and Baird, Argivian Recruiter. Mika is playing the original Lazav, keeping a Counterspell, Soul Ring, Phyrexian Arena, Island, Dismal Backwaters, Guild Feeder, and Bad River. Maximus is playing his Garth deck, keeping Boros Guildgate, Forest, Mystic Remora, Mirkwood Liege, Esper Sentinel, and Shamanic Revelation. I don't want Max to feel left out, so I'm playing my 5-color deck as well, with Jodah, keeping Verdant Catacombs, Shameless Charlatan, Rootbound Crag, Wrath of God, Isolated Chapel, Enlightened Tutor, and Street Urchin. Mika wins the die roll and starts us off. He plays a tapped Dismal Backwaters, gaining 1. Kevin plays a tapped Temple of Triumph, scrying 1 and keeping it on top. I've got a Verdant Catacomb for turn, cracking it and losing 1 to find a tapped Canopy Vista. Max plays a tapped Boros Guildgate. Mika plays an Island and taps 2 for the smaller Lazav. He surveils 1 as it comes in and bins Necropotence, which is frankly shocking. Kevin has a Plains for turn, and taps enough for an Oswald Fiddlebender. I've just got a Rootbound Crag, and paid 2 for a Street Urchin. Max casts an Esper Sentinel, and once it resolves, plays out a Forest and passes. Mika taps an Island for a Soul Ring, and then plays a tap land. He also pays the 1 to deny Max the draw before passing to Kevin. Kevin just draws and has to pass. On my upkeep, I play Enlightened Tutor to go and find Sanctum Weaver to put on top. This lets Max draw a card. I then draw the Weaver and play an Isolated Chapel and then cast it, passing while shuffling. Max surprisingly has nothing after drawing for turn and has to pass, discarding down to 7. Mika taps all of his mana to cast a Phyrexian Arena and pays the 1 for the Sentinel tax. Kevin has him drawing and then moving to his end step, discarding a Horde Hauler. And Maximus warmly welcomes him to the Miss Land-Drop Club. I draw for turn and cast an Eidolon of Blossoms, drawing as it enters. I pass after that. Maximus draws and casts Open the Gates. He goes to not find a gate, but an island instead, which he'll play. He then doubles up on his taxing effects by casting a Mystic Remora. Mika loses 1 to the arena, drawing from it and for turn. He plays an island and then casts Commander Sphere, not paying for either of Max's taxes. Max then gets to draw 2, and Mika casts a Nightveil Spectre, passing after that. Kevin's got a Soul Ring, and he denies Max's draw from the Sentinel, but doesn't have access to the 4 mana needed for the Remora, which has Max drawing a card. Kevin then passes after that. I play a Wooded Foothills, cracking it and losing 1 to find a Breeding Pool, and then take 2 so it comes in untapped. I then tap the Sanctum Weaver and all of my lands to make enough mana for a Nyxbloom Ancient. I get to draw as it enters from the Eidolon, and pass. Max decides to let his Remora go on his upkeep, and plays a tapped World Tree. He then plays a red, blue, and green for Temur Ascendancy, passing. Mika loses 1 and draws for turn. He plays an island and then goes at me with the Spectre for 2, and gets to exile my top card. It's Thassa, which he's happy to cast, and I'm less so because she's one of the few ways that I'm able to grant evasion to Jodah in my deck. With nothing else, he passes. Kevin taps his Soul Ring for a Felwar Stone after drawing, and doesn't pay the one for the Sentinel, letting Max draw. He then taps the Felwar Stone and his lands to cast an Academy Manufactor. He then ships the turn after that. I untap and draw with my Ancient still out surprisingly, and tap my lands to make 3 mana from each of them. I then tap the Weaver for 4, which is tripled to 12 green mana. I then use 1 of each color for Jodah, and Max helps me out by tracking my mana with some color relevant dice. Mika tries to counterspell my commander, but I use Force of Will and exile Supreme Verdict and take the 1 to stop it. Mika also pays the 1 to deny Max the draw, but I take pity on him and let him draw a card. With Jodah now out, I cast Zur Eternal Schemer and get my first legendary Cascade. I reveal into a popular entertainer, which I get to cast, and I get to draw from the Eidolon seeing it come in. I then cast Idyllic Tutor and go and find the most expensive costing background, Raised by Giants. I cast it once it's in my hand and get another Cascade. I reveal until I hit Agent of Shadow Thieves, drawing a card from the Agent coming in, and then another one from the Raised by Giants. I then cast those 2 cards, which are Chromatic Lantern and then a Soul Ring. Once those are out, I cast a Shameless Charlatan, knowing fully well my only 1 drop or less is Cultist of Absolute, which I continue to reveal until I hit it, which takes a while. I then draw as it enters, and then again as the Charlatan enters, and not having hit a haste enabler, I have to pass after that. Max draws for turn, and casts a Scoot Swarm. He then plays out a Cliffgate, picking black as it enters, and makes a Scoot Swarm token. He passes after that, moving to discard down to 7. Mika scries 1 from Thassa, and plays a Swamp for turn. He taps 2 blue and 2 black, casting his commander, Lazav Dimir Mastermind, and then just passes after that. Kevin untaps and draws. He casts Wernog, who enters, and Kevin gives us all a choice of getting a clue token. We all decide to take it, and with Kevin getting a clue from each of us, plus 1, he gets a total of 4, not to mention 4 treasures and 4 food. He then uses the temple and some of his clues to overload the Winds of Abandon. In response, I crack my clue token to draw, but sadly it's not a counterspell, and we then exile our creatures and go find a basic Purr. Thankfully I have just enough basics in my deck for the 5 creatures I lose. Kevin then uses Oswald to sacrifice the Manufactor and goes to find the Clock of Omens, putting it to the field. Kevin then uses his clues and foods to untap his Felwar Stone and Soul Ring a few times, giving him mana needed to cast a Phyrexian Delver. This brings back the Manufactor, and he loses 3 life, and passes after that. My turn is pretty quick, as I untap and play a Glacial Fortress, and then recast Jodah. I pay 3 mana for Sisay, and cascade into a 2 or less. It's a Noble Heritage, which I put to the field. I then cast Master Chef, cascading while Max does something perverse with his lands. This has me revealing until I hit a Blackblade Reforged, putting to the field, and passing after that. Maximus taps 7 mana, and has an Archivist and then a Drumbellower. He taps the Archivist during his main phase to try and draw a card thanks to the Ascendancy giving it haste. Responding to the draw trigger, Mika flashes out a Notion Thief and steals the draw trigger from Max. With nothing else, Max passes. Max gets to untap his creature with Mika, and Mika then loses 1 drawing from the arena and for turn. He recasts Lazav again, and then bounces a swamp as he plays out a Dimir Aqueduct, which comes in tapped. Kevin draws and does his shenanigans with a Clock of Omens and its artifact tokens to help cast Jorkadin the Prevailer. He then casts a Rites of Oblivion, sacrificing a permanent, and targets Jodah with the Exile. Kevin then goes at me with Wernog and the Delver. I decide not to block and just take the hit, rather than risk Sisay losing her to a combat trick from Kevin. In his second main phase, Kevin then uses the clock and more tokens to make 6 mana with his Soul Ring. He then casts a Tamiyo's Journal and activates it, sacrificing some clues to go and tutor for a card to hand. Kevin then casts Armix and passes to me. I'm not sure what to do at this point, and debate on whether or not to just swing a big sword-wielding Sisay at Kevin. I decide that's my best option, gearing her up with it, and go at Kevin, who unfortunately chumps with Oswald. I then pass after that. Maximus draws and casts Garth in his main phase, drawing from the Ascendancy. He then gets to tap Garth to help cast a Black Lotus, and sacrifices it to help cast Grave Titan. He makes 2 zombies as it enters, and draws from the Temur Ascendancy seeing the Titan enter. Moving to combat, he swings a Titan at Mika. This has him making 2 zombie triggers from the On Attack trigger, and before blocks, Mika casts Soul Shatter. I respond to this by activating Sisay, and tutor up a card to the field, while Kevin and Maximus sacrifice their bigger creatures. In the meantime, while I'm searching, Mika cracks his clue token to draw a card, and I settle on Levan, sacrificing it instead of Sisay. Mika then decides to have Lazav become a copy of the Grave Titan, which has Mika flashing out a Soaring Thought Thief. Mika draws and loses 1 from the arena, and then draws for turn. He swings the Thought Thief at Kevin, and Lazav at me. With the Thought Thief swinging, this mills each of Mika's opponents for 2, and Kevin then takes the 2, while I take 6. Mika then casts a Helm of Obedience, which smells like a combo to me, but he assures us it's not because he doesn't like that type of combo. Mika then plays out a Vantress Gargoyle, and passes to Kevin. Kevin untaps, but forgets his Investigate trigger on his upkeep from the Tamiyo's Journal. He plays out a Gogoro, and then uses his tokens to tap his artifacts to help make a lot of mana. He uses some of that mana for Sophina, and still has 1 red floating from the Felwar Stone, using it to activate Gogoro to give his team haste. He decides to swing Armix and the Academy Manufacturer at me, Sophina and Jorkadin at Mika, and Wernog and Gogoro at Maximus. He gets the Sophina trigger, making 6 clue tokens, which also makes him 6 food tokens and 6 treasure tokens. He also gets the Armix on attack trigger, discarding a card to take out the Notion Thief. I then take the full hit, while Max blocks with his zombie tokens, and Mika blocks with some of his tokens to stop it. With Wernog dying, Kevin gets another trigger from his commander, and Mika and I take the 1, while Max takes the clue token. This has Kevin gaining a total of 2 clues and therefore 2 more treasures and 2 more food. Kevin then makes some more mana using the Clock of Omen synergy, and uses the journal to sacrifice some clues to go and find a card to put to hand. He casts what might be that card with a Nadir's Nightblade. Kevin then taps even more clues to untap the journal, and then activates it again, sacrificing more clues. This has each of his opponents losing 3, and Kevin gaining 3 from the Nightblade. He finds and casts an Agent of Iron Throne, which is a similar effect to the Nightblade, minus the gaining life, but it also triggers from both of his commanders. Kevin then casts Wernog, and none of us take the clue, but he still gains 1, and gains a treasure and a food. I activate Sisay in response to find Sarah's Sanctum, and put it to field, trying to bluff it to Fairy's protection. Kevin then sacrifices his treasures, which will each do 3 apiece because each of Kevin's commanders has the Agent of Iron Throne trigger. This takes out Mika and I, but not before Mika dumps a bunch of mana into the helm, until he hits an ingenious artillerist, which Mika steals, and then he immediately dies afterwards. Kevin then uses that floating mana to sacrifice enough food tokens to take Max out and win the game. Game review time. So as you can tell, my voice is kind of coming back slowly but surely after having lost it again because daycare flus are real and seemingly endless. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm a big fan of Kevin's Sophina and Wernog deck. I love the interaction that he has with Clock of Omens and his tokens since they just provide him with so much value. I'd also completely forgotten that backgrounds apply to both commanders, especially with partners, making them doubly good, but I don't think I'm going to change my Jodah deck. As you saw, my Jodah deck can be incredibly explosive, and I'm surprised I got that Nyxbloom Ancient out for as long as I did. I've intentionally kind of powered it down by not having too many haste outlets and too many ways to give him evasion, but I might need to rethink that because having my commander up being massive on a board like that, and then not being able to swing with him is just a feel-bad moment. Max has a surprising amount of 5-colored decks, and a lot of them actually run Scoot Swarm. I don't know if he just changes the face card, or if they're entirely different decks by themselves, but we didn't get to see too much of this one unfortunately. I believe Mika said that his Lazav Dimir Mastermind is one of his first built decks that he built by himself. He runs a lot of the old classics, like as you saw Guilt Feeder in his opener, but also some new hotness cards, so it's kind of fun. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.